Hello students, today in this lecture we will discuss about grinding wheel specification. So first of all, let us understand what is this specification means. Now suppose if you went to the industry or a certain local stall, you want to buy a grinding wheel which has certain diameter. Another maybe requirement is the material of abrasive used. So that material maybe if you want a silica as a material, if you want alumina as a material, so that might be a variation. Similarly, as these abrasive particles are attached to this grinding wheel, there must be a certain bonding capacity. So based on that bonding capacity, you might be requiring different grinding wheels. So there might be a possibility of having different types of bonding. Similarly, other than this, if you want to specify, the abrasive particles used in grinding wheels are of similar design or maybe are of similar shape. So that particles may be of large size also, and that particle may be of smaller size also. So if the size of particle is comparatively large, at that time that particle are called as the coarse particles. If the size is comparatively lower, at that time that particles are called as the fine particles. So these are the different variations. So based on this variation, you may require different types of grinding wheels. So as a standard, there is a specific grinding wheel terminology or notation is given. Based on that, you can verify which grinding wheel has which diameter, maybe which type of bonding is used, and for that one standard specification that is given, and that you will understand now that how to read that specification and understand which type of material, which type of bonding is used in that particular grinding wheel. So let us start with simple example. Suppose one grinding wheel has given this type of specification. This is the first, it has certain interpretation. Next is A, this is second, this is third, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh. As you can see, there is a proper sequence. Means first is number, second is alphabet, next is number, next is alphabet. Similarly, you can see next is number, next is alphabet, and next is number. So total 7 different understanding or 7 different terms are given from which you can understand the specification of this grinding wheel. I have written all these 7 numbers over here because you need to remember that there are total 7 variations or 7 points are available which you need to remember. And to remember that, I have given you simple detail. Starting with number, there is an alternate arrangement and you need to move up to a 7 point. So first is number, then alphabet, number, alphabet, number, alphabet, and the number. And this is how you can just simply remember that how this sequence is arranged. And from that, its remembrance or its understanding is also very easy. Now, what is the meaning of these different types of number? Now that we will understand from this simple chart that you need to remember also. So this is the simple chart, and from this simple chart you can understand any specification given to this grinding wheel. So now starting with, as we have indicated, there are total 7 different variations are available from which you can understand the specification. So starting with first, let us first give number to this. This is 1, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and last is seventh. So over here 7 numbers are given. Different, maybe it may be a variable, or sorry, it may be a alphabet, or it may be a number. So there might be a variation in that. Now starting with first point. Whenever in grinding wheel specification the first number is given, that first number gives the idea about the nature of the wheel. That is the interpretation of first number. Similarly, the second part that is given, it has the alphabet, and that second part gives the idea of type of abrasive used. So suppose as shown over here, here the word 51 is indicated. So what is the indication of this 51? This 51 gives the idea about nature of the wheel. So it gives manufacturer's symbol indicating the exact nature of abrasive, and it might be a variable based on companies or different industries they are manufacturing this grinding wheel. Now the second one, it has the alphabet value A. So here the alphabet indicated as the A. So what is the interpretation of A? So A has the specific interpretation. It gives the idea that the material used or type of abrasive used, that is the aluminium oxide. So that A indicates the material used, that is the aluminium oxide. Similarly, if in place of A the word C is used, then that C indicates the material used, that is the silicon carbide. So there might be a variation. Mostly the word used are A or C. A indicates aluminium oxide, C indicates silicon carbide. Now the third part, and that third part gives the idea about the grain size. So grain size, that is nothing but the particle size which is used to form this grinding wheel. So it has different variations. The first one is, if the number comes under this range at this point, suppose you see over here the number given, that is the 36, and this 36 comes under the range of medium. That means the particle used are of medium size. So the grain size that is used is the medium. Similarly, if the number are given in the range of 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, 24, then they are called as the coarse particle. If the range is shown over here, then it is called as the medium particles. If the range shown over here 80 up to 180, so it is called as the fine particle, and if the range is more than 220, then that particles are called as the very fine particles, and these fine particles are used for finishing purpose also. So if the coarse particles are used, then we can say as this grinding wheel may perform roughing operation, and if the fine particles are used, then we can say as the grinding wheel may perform finishing operation. So these ideas we can get from the grain size. So you might have a question that now what these values interpret. So this value interpretation is very easy. For per square each area, the number of particles that can be accommodated, suppose if this is the 1 inch, similarly if this is the 1 inch, then this per square inch area, the number of particles can be accommodated, this value is nothing but the grain size. That means if on this particular 1 square inch area, if only 10 particles can be accommodated, and if in this similar area 220 particles can be accommodated, you can easily understand that this may give the coarse surface, as the particles are of very large size, so it may remove material in larger quantity. Similarly over here the particles are very small, and that's why this particle will remove very small materials. That's why these particles or this arrangement is called as the very fine arrangement. So now I hope first it is clear to you that this first number gives the nature of wheel, second number gives the idea about type of abrasive or material used, this third part gives the idea of about the grain size. Now the next fourth number, this fourth number will give the idea about the grade, and it has given letter, and the letter indicated over here, that is the small l. So as you can see, if the letter is in the range of A to F, then they are called as the soft grade. If the letter is in the range of G to V, then they are called as the medium grade, and W to Z, then they are called as the hard grade. So based on the alphabetical order given, from that you can understand if the grade provided, that might be a soft, maybe a medium, or maybe a hard. The next part that will give the idea about the structure of the material, and it has also given some numerical value. The numerical value given over here, that is the phi. So let's see over here. As you can see over here, as we have discussed, there are mainly two types of particles, coarse particles and the fine particles. And in the coarse particle, the size of particle that is more, and that's why that structure is comparatively coarse. And if the particles are very fine and spaced very closely, then that structure is called as the very fine structure. So now let us see over here, if the number given over here in this range and the number given over here in this range. So read over here very carefully, spacing from the closest to the most open. So the structure gives the idea about the space between the particles, how much space is between the particles. If the space is more, then we can say that it is the open structure. If the space is very less, then we can say it as the closed structure. So the structure is divided mainly into two types. First one is the open structure and second one, that is the closed structure. So again I am repeating this structure gives the idea about the space between the particles, from which you can get the idea about the structure. The next, sixth parameter, this parameter will give idea about the type of bond. The type of bond used to either this particle or abrasive particles available to the wheel available. So over here the word or the letter given, that is the V. So what is the interpretation of V? So you can read from over here, this V indicate the vitrified bond. If the letter S is used, then it is called as the silicate bond. If the letter R is used, then it is called as the rubber bond. If RF letter is used, then it is called as the rubber reinforced bond. If B is used, then it is called as the resinoid bond. If BF used, then it is called as the resinoid reinforced bond. E indicates the shellac material and Mg indicates the magnesia. So based on the notation used, you can understand that which type of bond is available in that grinding wheel. And the last one, that is the seventh one, and this seventh one that indicates the manufacturer's reference. And this manufacturer's reference, that is nothing but its own identification to understand the part manufactured. So again, these are the total 7 parameters that you need to remember. The first word that gives the nature of wheel, another is type of abrasive, grain size, grade, structure, type of bond and manufacturer's reference. And lastly, further take example. Now main important example shown over here, there are total positions over here. If the letter indicated over here, first one is 51, next is A, 46, H, 5, V and 8. Now this 51, this is the specific symbol and it gives the nature of abrasive. This A indicates the type of abrasive as we have discussed, and A indicates that the material used, that is the aluminium oxide. So it gives the idea about in this particular specification material, that is the aluminium oxide. Similarly, grain size, that is the 46. As the grain size is 46, it may be a medium or fine size range. Similarly, over here the grade indicated, that is the H, and this H indicates that the grade, that is the medium grade. Or we can say as there are different variation, it might be a soft grade, it might be a hard grade. So based on that, from the notation available from A to Z, you can easily interpret. Similarly, the word 5 indicates the structure of the material and 5 indicates the space available between the particles. Now the next V, this V indicates again type of bond, and V interprets that we can get interpretation like the bond used, that is the vitrified bond. And the last one, that is the nothing but the manufacturer's own mark. And this 8 indicates manufacturer's own mark, means it may be interpretation that is required for the different industries. So As an exam point of view, this specification of grinding wheel, that is most and most important, and you must need to remember the graph last PPT I have shown over here, because that interpretation is most and most important. And from that, by giving one example, you can easily attempt, if the question is asked as explain specification of grinding wheel in detail. So I hope it is clear to you that how to specify this grinding wheel. So looking forward to see you all in our next lecture. Up to then, thank you.